everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're going to have a pretty fun list for you guys. We're going to be counting down my top 10 most wanted 4K Blu-rays of 2024. This is going to include 4K Blu-rays that haven't been announced yet, so you're not going to see True Lies, The Abyss, Aliens, Trainspotting, the Conan movies, anything in the Columbia Classics Volume 4 on this list, because this isn't our most anticipated list. This is a wish list. These are the movies that I want on 4K Blu-ray for 2024. Movies that I've been hoping and begging to finally come to the 4K Blu-ray format, and today we're going to count them down from 10 to number 1. At the very end of this list, we'll have a few honorable mentions, and then after all of that, I want to hear from you guys. What 4K Blu-rays are you most anticipating for 2024, and which ones do you hope get announced for 2024? And without further ado, let's dive into this list.
You reject Satan and all his evils?
Sure.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
And then at number 10, we got 1994's Ed Wood. This is my second favorite Tim Burton movie, only behind Batman 89. Batman 89 already has a 4K Blu-ray release. So does Beetlejuice, so does Big Fish. But for some reason, one of Tim Burton's best films, with beautiful black and white that was a critical hit at the time, Ed Wood, exploring the life of Edward Wood, one of the worst directors of all time, but a man who had such a passion for making films, and Johnny Depp gives one of his best performances in this movie. It's actually one of the only movies that Tim Burton didn't work with Danny Elfman on the score, even though the score does sound like a Danny Elfman score. It's one of the only times they didn't collaborate together, but either way, this is a fantastic film that should have already been brought to the 4K format.
Well, you may run like Maze, but you hit like shit.
And then at number 9, I don't even have a physical release for it yet, mainly because ever since I started collecting 4K Blu-rays, I just assumed this would eventually come to 4K Blu-ray because it was one of the most popular, and it's my second favorite baseball film of all time, and that movie is Major League from 1989. I think if we're ever going to get it, it's going to be this year, celebrating its 35th anniversary. This movie had 2 sequels as well. Charlie Sheen as Wild Thing, one of the best on-screen athletes, and apparently Charlie Sheen could also really pitch, which is something you can't say about everybody who appears in this film. Wesley Snipes, who plays Willie Mays Hayes, apparently not a great baseball player, but he does play a fantastic character in this movie. Everybody is hysterical. I just love the jokes in this movie. It's actually one of my favorite 1980s comedies. I just cannot believe that this hasn't come to 4K Blu-ray yet. This was a really, really popular film, and I just thought everybody loved this movie. I guess not. I just can't believe that we're this far into the 4K format and we haven't gotten Major League. You can take the sequels and leave them. I don't need them, but I still want 1989's Major League on 4K Blu-ray.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
And then at number 8 is 1999's Fight Club, the David Fincher film. Now, I would have picked 7, but we already got a UK announcement for 7 coming to 4K Blu-ray, and I think it's only a matter of time before we get 7 announced for the US as well, since that scan is done. But the rumor is that this scan was actually already completed by 20th Century Fox before Disney actually bought them out. And just like Aliens, it was already completely done. We just haven't gotten it released on 4K Blu-ray, but there has been no hints at all that this will eventually end up on 4K Blu-ray. So I'm still hoping that we get it. This is probably David Fincher's most popular film. I know people love 7 like me, but many, many, many people know Fight Club. People still talk about the rules to Fight Club to this very day, and we don't talk about those rules. But for some reason, this movie has just gotten left behind in the Blu-ray dust, and we've just never gotten an upgrade, and I don't understand why. This was a big deal when it first came to DVD, the packaging on it, the menu system that carried over to this Blu-ray. It was a very popular physical release. How it hasn't come to 4K Blu-ray yet, I'll never know. My best guess is just because it got caught up in that 20th Century Fox and Disney buyout, and it just kind of cost them actually releasing this on 4K Blu-ray. We know Disney doesn't really care too much about physical media. They have gotten better. I got to give them credit for that. Let's just hope that they realize the error of their ways and they give us this on 4K Blu-ray this year.
Shimmy, shimmy, rock. I met a girlfriend, a Trisket. She said a Trisket, a biscuit.
And then at number 7, we got 1988's Big. I have the 25th anniversary edition Blu-ray here. Actually, back when I first got this in 2013, when you opened this up, it would play the song that they're playing on the piano in this movie's most famous scene. You know, with Tom Hanks and Robert Loggia. That scene is fantastic. It's probably the most memorable thing about this movie, but this Blu-ray, it's pretty good, but it's really starting to show its age. It's 11 years old to this point. I really don't know if we'll get this on 4K Blu-ray. I'm just really being hopeful, mainly because Tom Hanks is my favorite actor of all time. I also really love Big. It was really the movie that put Tom Hanks on the map for me. Saw this at a really young age. I've always loved this movie. It's just one of those great 1980s comedies. And I'm honestly not too sure we'll get a 4K Blu-ray this year. It celebrated its 35th anniversary last year in 2023. You know, we don't really get movies that line up all the time with anniversaries. We do get some random 4K Blu-ray releases in there, but a lot of the studios like to line up their releases with the anniversaries of films, and unfortunately this one just missed its anniversary, so I have no idea if we'll be getting this one anytime soon. I just really don't want people to forget about Big. This is one of my favorite movies of my childhood. I would love to revisit this in the 4K format. Like I said, Blu-ray's not too bad. If you have this Blu-ray, it's pretty good. I really wish that when I opened it up, it still played music. I get that's not going to last very long. It was really just a cool trick at the time, but it's not something that's going to last, and I completely understand that. I just really wish we would have gotten it.
Let's see that in an instant replay.
And then at number 6, we actually have a three-way tie, and it's going to include all of Jim Carrey's movies that he released in 1994, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. I've told you guys here on the channel numerous times, Jim Carrey is a very important person to me. He's my first favorite actor, and when I was growing up, I was born in 1992. A couple years later, my parents didn't really give a shit about ratings when I was growing up, so of course, even though Dumb and Dumber is rated R, I watched that on VHS in like 1995 or 1996 when I'm 3 or 4 years old. I grew up with The Mask. I remember on my 4th birthday, my dad getting me The Mask VHS. I could still remember every single trailer on that VHS. Ace Ventura. I watched Ace Ventura When Nature Calls a million times when I was growing up. I watched the original one a million times when I was growing up. The Mask, forget about it. Still revisit The Mask, and I still think Dumb and Dumber is the greatest comedy ever released. And this Blu-ray for Dumb and Dumber is really, really, really dated. It only has the unrated version of the film on it, so we don't even have the theatrical version of this film on Blu-ray. The last time the theatrical version of Dumb and Dumber was released on physical media was on DVD, so we haven't even gotten an upgrade to the Blu-ray version in a long time. And I get it, and I was one of these people that was saying, you know, comedies don't really need to come to the 4K format. It's not going to enhance those films that much, but I was dead wrong about that. We need comedies on 4K Blu-ray. I want an audio upgrade. I want a visual upgrade, and I want all the bells and whistles of the extras. I hope we get those. You know, all three of these are Warner Brothers New Line Cinema films. Warner Brothers owns New Line Cinemas at this point, so we can get all three of these on 4K Blu-ray. It's celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. It all lines up perfectly. Let's get these Jim Carrey movies on 4K Blu-ray. They deserve it. They're some of my favorite films of all time, and I know a lot of you guys love these comedies as well, and we really need upgrades to these Blu-rays. They're really starting to show their age, and a 4K would just be fantastic for all three of these. And if you want to throw When Nature Calls in there, I'm happy with that as well. I absolutely love When Nature Calls. I don't think it's as good as the original Ace Ventura movie, but the jokes might be a little bit funnier. They come at you a mile a minute.
You must be the Monopoly guy. Hey, thanks for the free parking.
But the plot of that movie is just not as good as the original Ace Ventura. You get more wrapped up in that in the original one than you do in the second one, but the jokes in the second one are fantastic.
This is God.
And then at number 5, we've been asking for this for a long time, but it's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, so if there's ever going to be a year where this comes to 4K Blu-ray, it's going to be this year, and that's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I want all of them on 4K Blu-ray. I'll settle for just the first one if that's what Warner Brothers wants to do this year. Like I said, this is a New Line Cinema film. Originally, they said that New Line Cinema was the house that Freddy built. Robert Shea gambled everything on A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it paid off. It started a very, very successful franchise of films, a successful franchise of films that have not been upgraded to the 4K format yet. We've gotten all the other big franchises. At least we've gotten upgrades. Like the Friday the 13th, we've only gotten the first one on 4K, but we got a really nice Scream Factory collection with a lot of new scans on it, the definitive edition of those movies. We got all the Halloweens on 4K Blu-ray. We even have all the Evil Deads on 4K Blu-ray. But when you think about it, isn't Freddy Krueger one of the most popular horror villains of all time? And to not have any of his films on 4K Blu-ray, it's a travesty. It really does bother me. I don't need the remake on 4K Blu-ray. You could take that and throw it in the garbage. You know, and even some of these sequels are not as good as the original, but I still love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and it just bothers me that we don't even have the original on 4K Blu-ray. But I think they're going to rectify that this year. I know that this franchise, just like the Friday the 13th franchise, has been stuck in rights hell for a long, long time, and I imagine that's what's holding them up from giving us a 4K Blu-ray of A Nightmare on Elm Street. But we want them all. I definitely want to see number 3 on 4K Blu-ray. But if I have to settle, I'll just take the first one. And I think a lot of us feel the same way, mainly because it is one of the most iconic horror films of all time. It is the movie that got me interested in horror. It was the first horror movie that I ever took interest in, the first slasher I ever saw. Fell in love with the horror genre from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it bothers the hell out of me that we don't have this on 4K Blu-ray. And then at number 4, another movie I don't have a physical release because I've been waiting for this movie to come to 4K Blu-ray for so long. Every time I go to buy a Blu-ray or a DVD, I'm always like, I don't know, it's going to come to 4K soon. And that's Once Upon a Time in the West. Sergio Leone's masterpiece. My second or third favorite Western of all time. I go back and forth where it places, but I know Unforgiven is number 1, but Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West is just a fantastic Western. It has one of my favorite scores of all time. All the actors in this movie do just a great job. It looks incredible. If you're a fan of spaghetti westerns, this is definitely the mountaintop of spaghetti westerns. Now, Sergio Leone also did direct the Dollars trilogy, but those already have 4K Blu-ray releases. I know some people are a little upset with the color timing on, I think, on The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. It's still cool that we have those on 4K Blu-ray. The fact we don't have Once Upon a Time in the West on 4K Blu-ray really does surprise me because a lot of people include this really near the top of their favorite westerns list. We've gotten a lot of great westerns on 4K Blu-ray. A lot of people say Django from Arrow Video is the best 4K Blu-ray they've ever seen of all time, so you just know we can get spaghetti westerns onto the 4K format, and they'll more than likely look gorgeous and beautiful. Now, this has been rumored for a long time, but on the other hand, none of those rumors ever came to fruition, so I don't know if they're actually even working on this or not. I'm hoping that they are. This movie came out in 1968, and it was shot on film, so you just know this movie is going to look so gorgeous on 4K Blu-ray, and that score, if they give us a great audio track, it's going to be phenomenal in the 4K format. Let's just hope we get this year. My fingers are crossed for Arrow Video. They do great jobs with westerns. If not Criterion, that would be my number 2. I really hope one of those studios give us that this year. We really do deserve that.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
And then at number 3, and this one has been rumored for a long time to be coming to 4K. It's one of Paramount's greatest releases of all time. It's in my top 5 favorite films ever made, and that is Chinatown, Roman Polanski's masterpiece. I mean, a lot of people might say Rosemary's Baby, but I think Chinatown is one of the greatest neo-noir films ever made. Jack Nicholson's maybe not his best performance, but it's in the top 2 or 3. Faye Dunaway is fantastic in this movie, and the way this movie looks. California.
California. Beautiful.
I mean, can you imagine the way with the sunsets, the sun rising in this movie? Imagine that stuff in the 4K format with Dolby Vision or HDR10 on it. Like I said, this has been rumored. It's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. A 50th anniversary edition of Chinatown on 4K Blu-ray. It writes itself, one of the most famous movies ever made. I know Roman Polanski is persona non grata. We don't need to talk about that. We got Rosemary's Baby on 4K Blu-ray last year. There is no reason why we shouldn't get Chinatown on 4K Blu-ray this year. Do love the Steelbook. If you want to re-release it in a nice Steelbook like this one, it's one of my favorites of all time. I love what they did with this. The matte finishing with the almost semi-gloss look to it as well. Really do appreciate what they did with this Steelbook, but if we could pop a 4K in there, I'll be a happy man.
The bad guys don't stand a chance.
And then at number 2 is the Lethal Weapon franchise. Now, these Blu-rays that I have right here, I absolutely hate the casing that it comes in.
I cannot talk about it without crying.
And then the Blu-rays on top of that are not that great. They're definitely showing their age. They're showing their wear on them. They really need new scans. Why these haven't come to 4K yet, I'll never know. Lethal Weapon is my favorite action franchise of all time. Grew up with these movies. I get it if you don't think that 3 and 4 are as good as 1 and 2, but 1 and 2, people go back and forth with which one is their favorite. Personally, I think 1's the best one, but 2 is still right there on its tails. It's a top 5 Richard Donner film, and I also really enjoy 3 and 4. 4 more than 3, actually, but I really do enjoy all 4 movies. Just cherish the entire franchise. Danny Glover and Mel Gibson just have incredible chemistry. You throw Joe Pesci in the mix in the second movie. You throw Rene Russo in there for 3 and 4. Rene Russo, who got her start in Major League, another movie that doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray. Well, her start in acting, really. She was a model before that. But still, Rene Russo, you throw her in here. This franchise just has it all. It's great. It's got that 80s cheese that I just absolutely love. An amazing score. Just one of the best action franchises of all time. And those Blu-rays just really need an upgrade to 4K. How we haven't gotten them yet, I'm not too sure. I thought a lot of people loved the Lethal Weapon franchise. And it's a Warner Brothers franchise. So again, I don't know what's going on. That would have been something that I would have included in my 100th anniversary last year. That is one of your cornerstones, at least for me it is. I get getting Enter the Dragon. That's one that you had to release on 4K for its 100th anniversary. Cool Hand Luke, Rebel Without a Cause. Those were big movies that needed 4K releases, but I think Lethal Weapon is right up there. Maybe it's not in that classic cinema genre, but I don't care. Lethal Weapon, for me, is one of those fantastic franchises, and the first Lethal Weapon is a stone cold classic. It is Richard Donner's best film, and that includes Superman. I think Lethal Weapon is better than Superman. Maybe you don't agree with me on that. And then at number 1, as long as I'm doing these lists, this will always be number 1, and that is the Terminator. And I think we're going to get it this year, guys. I think this is finally the year, celebrating 40 years this year. We haven't gotten a new scan of this in a long time. My favorite movie of all time. I'm wearing the Terminator shirt. We're hoping we're getting it this year. We're getting other James Cameron movies on 4K. We're getting The Abyss, True Lies, Aliens. I've heard all the bad things about True Lies. I'm going to wait till March and see it for myself to see if that DNR is really as bad as I'm hearing. But there is still hope. I know people are worried now about the Terminator, mainly because of that True Lies scan. You know, I don't think we have to worry too much. Apparently, the Abyss scan is also really good. Last year's Titanic scan was one of the best scans of 2023. So I do think that they're not going to fumble the ball on the Terminator. Now, the only thing is James Cameron does seem to like DNR, so we might get some of that on there. The previous Blu-ray scan is really not that bad. It's actually a really good scan. And every which way I've seen this movie, you know, I saw this for the first time on VHS, a really damn bad VHS from the library. So I've seen this movie increase in quality since then. I would just love to see it on 4K Blu-ray. I really do think that this is the year. I'm hoping that we get the same thing as RoboCop. We get that Arrow Video hard packaging with all the bells and whistles. The Terminator deserves it. It's one of the greatest films ever made. It is the greatest film ever made, in my opinion. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but I think the damn movie is a masterpiece and it deserves a 4K Blu-ray. And before we get out of here today, I do have 3 honorable mentions that I think deserve to come to the 4K format. First up is Robert Zemeckis' Flight. I think this is Robert Zemeckis' last great movie. It's actually one of my favorite Denzel Washington performances of all time. It actually is number 2, if you could believe that. I just think it's a different Denzel Washington performance. I think he does a fantastic job in this movie. John Goodman gives a great performance in this movie as well. Great licensed songs and great needle drops in this movie. It's just fantastic. And because the rumor is we're going to be getting Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 and Jackie Brown on 4K Blu-ray this year, I didn't want to include them on this list. Jackie Brown would probably be my choice of movies that I really wanted 4K Blu-ray, but because the rumor is that it's coming, didn't want to include it. So I did want to include another Quentin Tarantino movie that I think should come to 4K. The Hateful Eight should come to 4K as well, but if I had my choice of the other movies that haven't been released on 4K Blu-ray yet, or have a rumor, I want Django Unchained. This movie is fantastic. Remember seeing this in theaters. Jamie Foxx gives a great performance in this movie. Leonardo DiCaprio should have won an Academy Award for Calvin Candy. Luckily, Christoph Waltz did win his second Academy Award with Quentin Tarantino for this movie, basically playing the opposite of what he played in Inglourious Basterds, which he also won the Academy Award for. This movie, just great set design. Love the ending. I just love the blood and guts that we see all over the screen. I think it's so over the top ridiculous that I just absolutely eat it up. This movie is fantastic. One of the best westerns of all time, and you wouldn't think that, but if anyone knows how to shoot a spaghetti western, it's probably one of its biggest fans in Quentin Tarantino. And then my last honorable mention is Memento. I would like Memento and Insomnia on 4K Blu-ray, really just to complete the Christopher Nolan 4K Blu-ray collection, but Memento definitely does. I think this is one of those Christopher Nolan classics that deserves an upgrade. I really love this steelbook that I have. It's a Canadian steelbook that came out a long time ago. It's really great. The Blu-ray disc is actually pretty good. They had another steelbook come out this past year, so I don't know if we're going to get this on 4K this year. It does seem to be one that's just stuck on Blu-ray. Same thing with Insomnia. I'm not too sure if we'll ever get those on 4K Blu-ray, but we really do need every single Christopher Nolan movie on 4K Blu-ray at some point, just because everything else is on 4K from him. It's not like David Fincher where we have one 4K. Most of Nolan's movies are on 4K Blu-ray, and Oppenheimer was the best of 2023, so you can just imagine how good Memento can look on 4K. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I want to hear from you guys. What are you most looking forward to in 2024 for 4K Blu-rays? Which movies do you hope get announced for 2024? Let me know in the comment section below, and then while you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, share the video, and if you guys would like to take your membership to the next level, like my 3 producers, Jason Martin, John Doe Juggalo, and Nocturnal, you guys can do that, or you can even become a channel director like Frank Rodriguez, have your own choice review each and every single month, have access to a private conversation with me if you would like that, and plenty more perks. We also have a Friends of the Channel tier that does really help us out as well. We hope you guys can join that. If you have no money to throw our way, don't you guys worry about that. All we care about is you guys checking this video out and then enjoying that video. And if you did, don't forget to get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then after you're done doing all of that, we'll be seeing you around.